Hi everyone, welcome to my channel International Storyteller. In this channel, you will find true horror stories worldwide. These stories are for entertainment purposes only. In this video, I will tell you the spooky story about the ghost of a little girl who haunts the Spooner House. The Spooner House is one of the oldest houses located in Plymouth, which is a town in the US state of Massachusetts. This house was built on one of the oldest streets in the town of Plymouth in 1749. Since then, 5 generations of Spooners have called the two-story house their home. They stayed in the house until the death of James Spooner in 1954. When James Spooner died in 1954, the house was passed over to the Plymouth Antiquarian Society, where it became a museum. The house still has many items and things belonging to the Spooner family for everyone to see it. Today it contains over 200 years of original furniture and other items. So who is this little girl that haunts the Spooner House? In order to know this, let us hear the story. In the mid-18th century, there was an 8-year-old girl named Abigail Townsend who lived in the Spooner House. Her father was a fisherman, so he was away at sea most of the time. Abigail had a good relationship with only her father, and her mother never treated her well. Whenever Abigail's father left the house for fishing, her mother became very cruel to her. One day, Abigail's father failed to return home from one of his fishing trips. Abigail's mother blamed the poor little girl for her father's disappearance. She took her anger out on the little girl. Then one night, Abigail was found dead under mysterious circumstances in an upstairs room of the Spooner House. Abigail's mother claimed that it was a tooth infection that killed her daughter. The tooth infection in Abigail turned into a disease known as an abscess tooth. The infection quickly spread throughout the little girl's body, and there was nothing to cure it. Because there was no penicillin medicine in those days to cure the abscess tooth disease. Thus Abigail's mother claimed her daughter suffered from the abscess tooth disease leading to her death. Although her mother's explanation may be reasonable, many people from the town refused to believe her story. They suspected that Abigail's mother might have killed her own daughter out of anger after her husband failed to return home. Ever since the little girl, Abigail's death, her spirit has haunted the upstairs rooms in the Spooner House. Many people claim to have seen her ghostly figure looking out of the top window. Sometimes, they also saw her ghost standing at the corner of the house. But the ghost of Abigail is believed to be a friendly little spirit and never harm anyone. After the last owner of the house, James Spooner, died in 1954, the house was passed over to the Plymouth Antiquarian Society, where it became a museum. Since then, many people came to visit the Spooner House and experienced the haunting inside the house. One night a group of tourists, while walking outside the house at night, saw strange lights going from one room to another on the upstairs. The strange light appears like someone was walking up and down the house holding a candle or lantern. One tourist was curious about the strange light inside the house. So, the tourist asked their guide to open the windows so she might have a look inside the house. The tour guide kindly opened the window and aimed a flashlight inside the house. When they looked inside the house, they saw a little girl standing in the dark corner of the room. The scary little girl was staring back at them. The tour guide aims the flashlight at the scary little girl standing in the dark corner of the room. At that moment, the scary little girl mysteriously vanished into thin air. After that scary incident, the building had been well secured and empty for the night. Then a few years later, another group of people using a lantern was touring outside the Spooner House at night. Then a woman among the group felt someone touching the back of her shoulder. When the woman turned back, she saw a little girl in a white dress. Then a moment later, the little girl vanished in front of everyone. The group of people thought it was just a special effects performed by the museum staff to scare them. So, the group was amazed at how the little girl really made them fearful for a moment. At that moment, the tour guide told the group that the museum does not have any little girl running around at 10:30 p.m. trying to scare people. Then in another story, a writer for Gatehouse Media Service named Emily Wilcox said that a woman who used to live next door to the Spooner House awoke in the middle of the night to find the ghost of Abigail standing near her bed. Thus there are many scary incidents happening in the Spooner House. But the most recent haunting in the Spooner House occurred in 2005. In August of 2005, a group of workers was hired to do some renovations at the Spooner House. Upon arriving, the door of the house was locked. So the workers began knocking on the door. Then a moment later, a little girl in an old-fashioned white dress opened the door. They thought the little girl was staying in that old house. The little girl let the workers inside the house, and then she went into another room. The workers entered inside the house and were busy with their task. Later, the manager of the museum arrived at the house. He was shocked to see the workers already inside the house. The manager was curious and asked the workers how they got inside the house and who had let them in. The workers replied that a little girl opened the door and allowed them to enter inside the house. After hearing that, the manager asked, "What little girl?" Then the manager said, "There is no little girl in the house, as it is a museum and is always locked." Then the workers and the manager walk inside the room where the little girl had entered. But they found no one inside the room. Then they searched the entire house from top to bottom. All the rooms were empty, and there was no sign of any little girl inside the house. The workers were so spooked and realized that the little girl was actually the ghost of the little girl Abigail. So, they gathered their tools and immediately left the house.